Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Don't slide on or off.
Just leave it.
Hey, everybody.
Hi. Hello.
Okay, well, I think we can get started. We have quorum, just waiting for Kerry. Sal is gone on to bigger and better things. Yep. Um, and both Sophie and Eddie weren't able to make the rescheduling. Um,
Oh,
it's going to be just the three of us and hopefully the four of us when Kerry arrives, but I think we could get started. Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to call the meeting to order. Do I have a second?
second.
Second, uh, roll call, Kevin,
Here.
Joan, Joan,
Yes.
and Rick Lopez. Yes. Okay. In terms of our agenda tonight, um, we have minutes both from February, which we didn't quite get to last time. Well, we wanted some revisions, and last month's March. Then we'll have public comment, and we have two matters before us: the 20 Covey Hill Road matter, and that of 56 Arcadia Avenue. And we'll have administrative hearings for both of those, and we will be taking a vote on both of those. And then we'll wrap up with updates, and as usual, any final comments, and that's it. Okay. In terms of the minutes, uh, for February 12th, were there any, oh, hi, Carrie. You're muted.
Sorry to be late. Thanks. Yep.
Any, changes, suggestions, edits, that anybody saw?
Nope.
Good to us.
None from me.
And for me either. Okay, I make a motion to approve the minutes from February 12th. Have a second.
Second.
Carrie. Roll call, Carrie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Yes.
Rick, yes. Okay, and then in terms of the minutes for for March 12th, any edits, changes? Carrie, yeah?
Two things. One, I didn't get a chance to look. I thought I wasn't sure Sal was, well, maybe he was there, but I'm not, I just didn't look. And then the other one is Safe 2.0 is referenced twice in the minutes, and it should be spelled SAPHE, not like it
Good point.
sounds.
So,
So, that was all I saw.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Sal was there. Um,
Maybe it was Sophie that couldn't be with us. There was there was a note about somebody missing, and
Okay,
yeah, but that's fine.
okay. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the change in the spelling of safe. And also, Haley, if you can just double check the recording,
Yep.
make sure that that wasn't the case. But I think Sal was here. Perhaps it was Eddie that wasn't. I don't remember. So that's my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Joan, second. Roll call. Carrie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
and Rick, yes. Okay, in terms of public comment, I see a couple names out there. So I think I saw Joe Harrington and Peggy Harrington first. Haley, do you want to unmute them?
Yep. So if it works, I can call them out one at a time. We have somebody else joining also, and then I can give them the 2-minute time frame. Does that work?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay. All
Um,
right. So I can start with Joe Harrington.
Yeah.
Just ask to unmute him.
Mr. Harrington,
Yes.
hi, welcome.
Okay, good. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
I guess my video is disabled. That's fine. Not a problem.
Okay. And can you just give us your address and then you'll have
Yes.
2 minutes to make any comment you would like to for the board.
Yeah, my name is Joe Harrington, 12 Franklin Terrace here in Reading. And I understand that apparently the turkey feeding problems are going to be discussed tonight. And I thanks for the notification I got on that. And I'd just like to say a couple things. I want to encourage the board and support any efforts that they want to make to help stop the feeding of the wild turkeys. And I also want to plead with anyone who maybe is listening tonight or not, if they're feeding wild turkeys, to please stop. Because of the people feeding the turkeys, we ended up with a very large concentration of wild turkeys in our neighborhood. And at some point towards the end of the fall last year, there were over 40. I swear there must have been 50 on some days. That's a lot of turkeys to be parading through your yard. And they were going to a couple of what I started to call feeding stations in the neighborhood, one of which I believe is going to be discussed tonight. So that massive concentration of turkeys, made for a big problem. But the first thing is, feeding turkeys is not good for the turkeys, at least according to the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. So if folks are doing it, I think they might want to think about the fact that it's not good for the turkeys. Having unnaturally large concentrations like that helps the spread of the diseases among the birds, potentially makes them a bigger target for predators, and I suppose even dogs. So that's one reason why I would hope that any of my neighbors who are feeding turkeys would stop. The other thing is that in addition to not being good for the turkeys, it's not good for the neighbors. The turkeys make a tremendous mess. They roost on roofs, trees. There's a mess over people's patios, furniture, swing sets, you name it. And there's really, once they're in the trees, there's not much you can do about them once they're up there. They're also very noisy in the mornings, especially early. They wake up pretty early, more than I don't have school age kids here for the most part, but I have neighbors that do, and those kids need as much sleep as they can get. They also did actually become quite aggressive.
Sorry, Joe, your 2 minutes is up.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, I'll do Peggy Harrington next.
Yep.
Hello?
Hi, Ms. Harrington. Thank you for joining us. If you, I presume you're connected to Joe Harrington, maybe. So you don't have to give you a street address, but go ahead. You have
Peggy Harrington, 12 Franklin Terrace, and yeah, we are pretty connected.
Yes.
I'm I guess I didn't realize I would be speaking. I wanted to join in on to see the meeting. However, I do obviously agree with everything Joe says. And at the end, he was saying they are becoming very aggressive, the turkeys. And so when the little kids are out, we've got a 4-year-old grandson who's out in the yard and he's got turkeys chasing him. I mean, it's and it's and we try to help them, but it's getting to the point where it's beyond ridiculous. And the amount of mess our neighbors have a a swing set, and they have it's I mean, they're out there trying to clean it and the kids can't even use it anymore. So it's really, and you drive by on Van Norden and they were placing food on the table for the turkeys. And so and also on Covey Hill, you could see that the turkeys were feeding off of a bird feeder that was put very low. So it's not, and it's not helping the turkeys. So if any help that we can get to take care of this, we would really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
All right, I'll do Dana next.
Dana, did you want to speak?
I'll unmute.
Unmute her
Yes, hello.
Yes. Hi,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us. You can give
Yeah,
your
so
name
I'm
and
right.
address.
Yeah, I'm in the same neighborhood as the Harringtons and on Swan Road, and I just wanted to say I agree with most everything they've said. We had a herd of about 40 of these things over the winter, and it was a horrible nuisance. The droppings were just overtaking the walks and so forth around the house.
Hmm.
But since Mr. Sullivan helped us out. You all passed a ordinance, and the lady that was doing most of the feeding was fined apparently, and so I believe she stopped feeding them, which is great. And I noticed over here at least there's a noticeable difference. The turkeys are starting to disperse, and things are looking a lot better here on Swan Road. But I think it's very important to keep up the law and enforce it like you have been. And I thank you for all you've done so far, and it's made a significant improvement, at least in my yard. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Dana.
And we can ask JoJo if they'd like to speak, or
Yeah, well, I wonder if JoJo is with Katie Freeman, who's our
oh yes, sorry. Yep.
administrative
All
hearing.
right.
Okay. I think that is it.
56 Arcadia, 40 Fremont, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we can move on to our administrative hearing at 20 Covey Hill Road. And I'll make a motion to open the administrative hearing. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second. Roll call, Carrie,
yes.
Kevin. You're muted, Kevin.
Yes.
Okay, Joan
Yes.
and Rick, yes. Okay, so just as a reminder of how these things work, we're going to start with a overview by Aday as to what the issue is, what has been done, what's transpired from the perspective of the health department, and then we will ask Mrs. Cooper, Kendra Cooper, to who I believe is KGC, to give her perspective, and I think she's basically appealing the violation and the fine, and so she will give her thoughts about this whole situation. At which point, There will be an opportunity for the board members to ask questions to Kendra and to Aday about the situation. And after that, if there are no more questions, then we will close the administrative hearing, and the board will have some time to deliberate on a decision. That's kind of how we're going to generally do these. So I'm going to start, let Aday start with his overview.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. The Feeding of Wildlife Regulation, Section 26, was on the Board of Health agenda 4 times in 2025. It was on the agenda on February 13th, May 29th, June 12th, and August 14th. The regulation was finally approved by the board on August 14th, 2025. On December 1st, we sent out a do not feed wildlife flyer to Mrs. Cooper after receiving a complaint and verifying a violation at her residence. We observed multiple bird feeders at her residence. On December 2nd, Mrs. Cooper came to the office and stated that our flyer contained false information. She stated it was an elementary school level flyer and that she will keep feeding the turkeys. At that point, we informed her there was an approved wildlife regulation pending publication. On February 11th, the regulation was published in the Daily Times Chronicles, and it was posted to town website on March 16th. On March 2nd, after the publication, we received another complaint regarding turkey feeding at 20 Covey Hill Road. We found multiple bird feeders on her property, but one stood out to us. Haley, could you please put up that picture?
Yes. Can you all see that?
Yes. So this is 20 Covey Hill, and right underneath the tree, you can see a bird feeder right there, right above the turkeys. And that shows direct association between the bird feeder and the turkeys. They're getting food from the feeder and they're just relaxing on the fence. You know, they don't need to do much work to get the food. It's right there, readily available. So based on that, we issued a cease and desist order as well as a violation ticket to Mrs. Cooper. We conducted subsequent inspections, and the bird feeders have since disappeared. And I believe Mrs. Cooper is here tonight to either address the violation and or to challenge the process. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Aday. Can we unmute Mrs. Cooper?
Yes. I just asked to unmute her.
Great. Mrs. Cooper,
Yes,
yes, welcome to the board. Thank you for coming.
well, it would have been nice to be in person. Absolutely. I can't believe that you don't do that kind of thing when you assess fines to people.
Yeah. Well, it's been the case for a number of years for now, and many boards of health,
COVID, it was
many
COVID.
boards of health are in fact remote. But go ahead.
My husband also was listed on these charges, so he's here as well.
And
Okay.
I prepared a summary of what happened in my view.
Okay.
I'd like to go through.
So you're both on. That's fine.
We're both on the same. We were just looking at you together.
Okay. Go ahead.
So the first time I'd ever heard of section 26 of the regulations was the copy attached to the fine and the desist order, the cease and desist order. So that raised my curiosity as to what the hell's going on, because I couldn't believe that I'm getting a fine for something I didn't know about. So I began to investigate. The first thing I did was check the town website, and there's no regulation 26 at this time frame. It didn't get
In early March,
up until when, March
16th,
16th, okay.
after I pointed out that it wasn't
Yeah.
on.
So after that, I then went to your Board of Health agendas for 2025, and I found those same 4 meetings. I went to the videotapes and listened to the discussion of the 4 meetings. And by the way, I don't think you actually ever finally voted on that. And there was no vote taken in the August meeting, which is the effective date of the regulation.
Final draft, which we,
And that would have given 2 of the members that were not there for the 3 vote on the June meeting the chance to weigh in on it. And so I'm not even sure it's valid that it's been voted on, but anyway, because it said on the agenda that it was going to be for inform and vote, but you didn't vote. So that bothers me a little bit. I viewed the videos, I reviewed the minutes, all released on February 11th, 6 months after the approval of the document, basically.
all of your minutes were released on
All
the
of your minutes.
2025, on the 11th of
Well,
February,
there
the
were
next year.
a couple in the first part of the year that were released earlier, but most of them that involved these 4 meetings at least were not released until February 11th. The same day that the notice went in the paper for the legal notice. So again, at the June meeting, it was approved by Kevin Sexton, Carrie Dunnell, and Richard Lopez. And then it was sent to the council for further review, I believe. And at the August meeting, then
The 14th.
well, despite the agenda saying informed vote, there was just an informed section of the meeting talking about the changes that were made, the 2 days, and that was fine with the legal as far as there was a rationale for it and so forth. So no vote was taken, though. I did review that again tonight just to make sure. In the meantime, a C-click fix in November had identified 20 Cover Hill as a location feeding the turkeys. We weren't feeding the turkeys. We were feeding the birds. The squirrels were feeding the turkeys, you know. So we had a squirrel problem, really, and not a turkey problem. But I can understand why we should have done better on putting a baffle up or something to defeat the squirrels from being able to disperse the food to the turkeys, basically.
But we were unaware of any of this only after we got the fine and
Well, no,
and this. Well, no, but I'm
no,
saying.
we were not aware of the regulation.
Oh,
But we
absolutely.
did get
But
that.
all of that
We
discussion the
got
year
the
before.
poster, the little sheet that showed the Mass Wildlife saying, "Don't feed the wildlife."
Well, that's not even what they
which-
say. This is like a page of a 6-year-old.
Kendra, can I just finish, please?
Okay.
On December 3rd, we received that poster cartoon notice, and Kendra couldn't believe it would be from the Board of Health, so she went to check it out. And she found out that
Yeah. Oh, no, that's all right.
that it
Now,
was
I'll-
issued by the Board of Health in response to the C-click fix, apparently. But, you know, you had the regulation approved at that time, so why didn't you hand out the regulation to us and we'd know about it instead of keeping it a secret, you know? Anyway, apparently another C-click fix went out in the first part of the year, February, I believe, and we were targeted by the health department, I think, for the cease and desist order, and the notice of violation was issued after.
It was March.
Yeah, March, because
Right. No, but
they didn't have, they
you're
didn't,
talking
they
December.
didn't release the minutes till February 11th. They
I know, we
didn't
didn't know anything about
put a
it.
legal notification until 11th, so that's why we didn't know about it. We think you've done a poor job in communicating this regulation, and we
And
think
the
we've been
complaint.
aggrieved by that, by being fined and having a notice to desist,
Cease and desist.
cease and desist order in place. So based on that, I would urge you to dismiss the violation, and you should consider dismissing it for everybody that's been fined so far, because I don't think it was communicated. You could have sent it out with water bills or something like that. You know, I just think you're not proud of this attempt at controlling the turkey problem. And I don't think it's going to be effective anyway. We will reduce our feeding of the turkeys, but
We're not, they are in the yard. They are across the yard. They are native to this area where the golf course is, where the town forest is, where you know, we've got all of these, and the Ipswich River. We have lived here since the 80s, and there have been birds for years. We have been, and we have had a bird feeder. We can't be out there and policing, well, are the turkeys eating it, or are the mourning doves eating it, or are the hawks eating it, or the blue jays? I mean, this has not been a problem. It's been you know, and I think if you were receiving these complaints, you should have had some sort of public hearing so people could be aware of it. I mean, there was nothing in the newspapers other than, you know, and when I read the minutes and I read the times that you've discussed this, and I thought, you know, why didn't anybody talk in public about this? Instead, we've got
so that's the other thing. We mention this to people and they're unaware of it. You know, they're just saying,
Totally
"What? You're
appalled.
kidding me." You know, they can't believe it. But anyway, we're going to try to do better with our
well,
squirrel problem. Really, it's a squirrel problem.
the other problem was that we received this. Now, this was one of the worst snowstorms of the century, of this, you know, not century, of the decade, maybe the century too. I don't know. I'm not that old, but it was one of the worst problems. And to have something, when I read section 26, there is a lot of questioning in there. I mean, even the legal angle that you've taken with that, intentional and unintentional, attractants, what the definitions are. I mean, it boggles the mind. And I have talked with many people in the North Shore about this, including the Essex County, the agriculture, the co-op, which I belong to. And they are mortified and they are shocked that the way this is worded and the expectations, and some people are being told to take your bird feeder down. Other people aren't being
That's the
told
other
that.
thing. They call the health office and they're told, get rid of your bird feeder. Well, you know, I don't think people have to get rid of their bird feeder if they control the bird seed that falls off of it, right?
But it's very hard to do, and especially when we got that. And I looked at that picture. I mean, I have.
Well, that's not the bird feeder, by the way. That's not even
That's
close.
not even close to
That's
where the
not a bird
feeder
feeder that was circled. The bird feeder is way over to the left. You know,
So, I mean, and these are turkeys on my
crazy that
neighbor's
you're
fence.
circling something that is not even a bird feeder, you know?
Well, and that's, I
Crazy.
am really appalled at the way that.
And by the way,
that
when
certain
Kendra was,
properties were targeted. And I mean, and just because someone calls, well, you know, and no one really, other than me bringing up this thing that was not sent to us, it said to current owner in a childlike scrawl of 20 Covey Hill Road. I mean,
and by the way,
and it did not look, I mean, I've taught K through college, and
we
believe
didn't
me,
say we were going to continue to feed the turkeys.
I did not say
at the
anything like that.
town health
I
department.
beg to differ with what Ade said. That is not the way it went down. And when I brought that when I showed that to them, one of the reasons that I couldn't believe it, number one, it was not very professionally created. It did not, and I told
Well,
them.
again,
there
why
weren't-
issue that? Why not give us the regulation?
And I
You know,
did ask,
because
I
it's been
told them
approved.
that actually you should, if you should have the law that says, or that you claim to say that they will become aggressive. That is not true. And if you talk to the Audubon Society, there are also other
They say may
organizations.
become aggressive.
May.
You know, not
If you're
will.
going to go into serious legal aspects, may should be something that, you know, the way it's worded, and that's why I went down, because number one, it really did look like a first page of a coloring book for a 6-year-old. but also with the cutesy little birds and stuff. But it also had statements that were not true. You can't say they will become aggressive. I mean, we've had turkeys for years, as have many people in town. And there are people in town who have no idea that this was passed and that you are enforcing it with fines.
Well, anyway, I don't understand, number one, why wasn't there a warning given before the fine? That would make
think
sense
you
to
see.
me. And in that way, you would
And then
know
we
that
would
we're
have
aware of the
public.
regulation before you fine us, you know? But that's just poor communication.
And this also, I mean, I wrote the board on the 10th of March after we got this thing. And after we got the violation, the alleged violation that says that your health inspector was unable to obtain a signature. Well, my husband was home on that time. If that is when they did it.
Doorbell camera doesn't show anybody coming to the front door during that time at all.
And I understand what I got yesterday at 3:03 from Ade, and it goes into, because I asked, all right, so who took the when was that photograph taken? What was it? And I did obtain the photograph from Laura Gem, because I specifically said, okay, we want a hearing, but we also need this kind of information, like when was it publicized, and we wanted to know, how was it taken or what, because it looks like it was taken from the neighbor's yard. And she was appalled when she saw that, because she said that, that doesn't look at all. That looks like it's from her driveway. So she's really concerned. And what I got from my day yesterday was that when I said, well, how was it taken? And what manner were we notified? And instead, I'm once again, this Mass General Law, Chapter 21, Chapter 40, 21D, non-criminal ticket or whatever. But regardless of what that says, the notice that we got, the violation specifically says that we were, let's see, that
By
they were
signing it,
unable
you're
to.
admitting it.
Well, and by signing it, you would be admitting something, but also checking off without ever speaking to us, that checking off that they were unable, whoever came, I don't even know. I mean, it's Zeneth, I think is his name. He came and he allegedly came there. I mean, maybe he didn't. And it checks off that if this was that whoever it was that filled this out was unable to obtain a signature, which implies that we might have watched them or something. But that's not true, and it's not that he didn't. Nobody spoke to us. We had no idea until I went to the
I don't think
post
he
office
tried
and
to
got it.
speak to us.
We don't believe if he even was there. We through Laura Gem, we have the metadata for the photograph, and we know what kind of camera it was taken with. I asked through what means, and they're just saying, oh, well, they don't have to
And so
observe.
we did respond to the hearing, and we didn't hear back at all.
So
So
on
we
the
sent
10th.
you a letter just to make sure you had received that notice. You didn't respond. Nobody's responding to us. So what the hell is going on, you know?
Well, and plus, when we did get some communication from, it was, I think, on the 7th of April, it was from Haley.
Oh, yeah. Haley just said the meeting has been moved
Well,
to
she
the
said
15th.
advantage. I'm thinking that implies that we've been talking and we knew when we were supposed to come or have a hearing. And that's when I wrote things. I said, look, what is this just informing me of when the Board of Health has meetings, or is this when we're supposed to have the hearing? And then I didn't get anything until our days yesterday. So, I mean, there's a lot of miscommunication, and I can only imagine what other people, if they have gotten it. Now, I asked how many people, have gotten fines, and Laura Gem wrote 3 to me. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know, because we were unaware of any of these complaints until we got this cute little thing, but I wasn't even aware of that. I mean, when I went up, because it looked like someone had gotten hold of the town stationery and the town envelope. And I couldn't believe that without something coming from the Board of Health, that they would not have very specific references to a specific bylaw or something on it. Instead, it ends up, just having
Well,
a brief
that's the
message.
absurdity that you had the reg
Well, if it
already
was,
in place.
if it was in
and
effect and
you didn't issue it
they could
because
have given it to me then.
I don't know why you didn't issue it. I don't think you're proud of it, whatever.
Well, it's not proud. It
Well,
undermines the trust of the
something
board.
is wrong.
It really does.
Something is wrong.
When people, hear about these things that exist and that people are hit with fines and have no idea about it, you really need more publicity. But you also need to carefully look at the wording of section 26, because there are a lot of problems with that. And,
Okay, but anyway, I
and
think
I think we kind of got the picture. And
well, it definitely has been confusing, to put it mildly. It's and we want, I guess I've never had a reason to feel badly about the Board of Health or even watch your meetings. And the problem also is a lot of people in town are not online. I know it's,
well,
I know it's more convenient for you guys, and for anybody who is, it's nice. But for neighbor, I mean, my neighbor is not online. She's lived, original owner. And she knows the trade. I mean, the Harringtons. Now, we didn't know it was the Harringtons until and there was something on C-Click Fix when we were going, and somebody else saw that. We didn't see it until they did a screen grab, and now it's gone. It's off of the DPW side.
no, it's still there. It's been archived. I looked it up tonight.
Oh, you
and
did,
it's
yeah.
there.
Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't for other people. They couldn't find it.
So let me ask, do any of the board members have questions for Mr. and Mrs. Cooper? If so, raise your hand and go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you both for coming tonight. I've listened to everything that you've had to say, and I can definitely take it in. Processes can always be better. I will say that we didn't do anything different with this regulation than we've done with any other regulation in the past. So, if you want to complain about the overall process of it, I get it. That's fine. But on our side of it, we didn't do anything different. We didn't change anything. We did notify the public via both newspapers that we were holding public hearings. We did hold a public hearing in this matter. And this is a long time coming, believe it or not. This is not something that popped up on the radar. I just want you to know that. Now, all that being said, certainly your case seems to be unique in regards to the fact that I feel like we may have bypassed a warning and jumped right to an actual fine. It seems like though you had a meeting with our health director in regards to that, and so the questions I have to you are: have you been feeding these turkeys? You say it's a squirrel problem. I don't understand. Can you explain that to me?
How the squirrel gets in the feeder and dumps out the seed, and the turkeys eat it off the ground.
Okay. If they come through, they don't live at our yard or their neighbor's yard.
No, we know exactly where they live. They live off of Swan Ave on that vacant land.
No, I don't think so.
No, I know so. No, that's not open for argument or debate. I absolutely know so. I know exactly where they live, and they kind of make their way throughout the yards. And these are birds that absolutely have a pattern, right? So these birds know where they can get their feed source from. I'm not saying you're feeding them. I'm saying they know where they can get their feed source from, right? So what we're trying to combat with this is the public nuisance to neighbors, which has been a issue for years and years and years. Actually, the folks on Swan Ave are the ones that facilitated the need for this regulation because it was such an issue over in that area. Because I don't know if you know, behind Swan Ave, are you familiar with that area?
Oh, yes.
So there's that big vacant piece of land that's back there.
Yep.
That's where they kind of stay and live, and then they come out and they migrate out and they go and they find their feeding spots, and they kind of do that.
That area is
go back there at the end of the night. That's their MO. We kind of know it. It's been very evident over the years. So that's really where this came from. And I don't want to try to argue the points that you're making, but I just want you to know from a Board of Health standpoint, we have been very diligent with the way we've gone about this. This has not been a fast process at all. As a matter of fact, if you ask some of the neighbors that are affected by this, it's been a slow process. It's been several meetings that we've had along the way. You know, to dispute what you said earlier, we have had a public comment, public hearing over it. All this has been there. It's very difficult for us to feed everything that we do down to every household. You know, we go about it in a manner that is transparent. We go about it in a manner that is making sure that we publicize this in the newspapers. We go about it exactly to the way the law has laid it out. Now, is that perfect? Probably not. I'm not going to argue that point with you, but it's no different than any other way we've gone about it, any other regulation that we've adopted. So I just want you to know that, because it seems like you don't have a lot of faith right now in our department, but I want the public to know and you to know that that's not the case. We have done exactly what we've always done. And it's tough to get everybody. I get it. Trust me, I get it. But at the end of the day, you're not going to get everybody. And some things are going to fall by the wayside in the way of people don't have the time, the inkling to want to delve into daily meetings. In government, I understand that. So that's not open for argument debate. It's is what it is. There's no malice in anything that we've done. We've just tried to help cure an issue that a lot of residents have had with these turkeys and wild animals for that matter. And this is the best way we came up with it. At the end of the day, if we roll it out and it's not perfect and we change it, so be it. But I'd rather roll it out in an imperfect thing that helps the community right away. So I'm actually absolutely fine with the way we have our regulations written. I will say to your defense that, yeah, you probably should have got a warning rather than a fine right out of the gate. A verbal written warning with the actual regulation. The putting out a pamphlet on our behalf or a flyer on our behalf that's user friendly. That's about the best way we can do it. So I know you call it like sixth grade flyer, but we're trying to be user friendly with that flyer. We're trying to make it easily accessible and readable and digestible to the residents.
But the difference is, if you had given us the regulation at that time, we'd know there was a fine.
So listen, I am in complete agreement with you. We should have given you a warning, and we should have given you the regulation with that warning. I'm not going to dispute that. I think that's the way it probably should have gone. Again, it sounds like this has been going on in your yard for a while, and that there should be some kind of leeway to allow you to figure out this regulation that we've just rolled out. But I don't want you to go out there and say that the process was flawed. It really wasn't. It was a long time coming.
When was
there's people on Swan Ave that will tell you it was too long.
When was that hearing? Because I asked for that. The one that you say there was a public hearing. When did you conduct the public hearing? The first one?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know we had one.
Yeah, well, we don't know either, because we've looked back and we were trying to figure out when, was it in 2000? I mean, where was it and when was it and how did people know? Because I specifically asked, that's one of the questions, how was this publicized? When were the hearings? And what was the second newspaper? Because when I asked about how it was publicized, where was it? And there was a notice. You said there were two newspapers. The only one I'm aware of that I was told was the Chronicle on the 11th of 2026.
So if I can just jump in real quick, there are certain regulations that require a hearing, and there are some that don't require a hearing, a public hearing.
There was no hearing. And actually, Ade, I did not talk with you the day that I went in with that little coloring book, flyer that even says, like, the wildlife strongly advises them. And what I did say to them at the time was that the people in the office, I just said, if this is what you want, you should put the regulation, not just strongly advises. I have researched it. I am on the MassBar legals, the animal the animal subcommittee. And, you know, we've all been looking at this and wondering what, where it came from. Have they ever seen that? And it says, do not, and this is the cute little one I'm reading with the colors. It says, do not feed turkeys because turkeys will become aggressive. Not necessarily at all. And feces will begin to
So
spread.
Kendra, can I stop you?
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with our regulation or do you have a problem with your fine? Because tonight you're here to discuss the fine that you were given.
Well, we don't
Just
think
want to
We're
clarify.
trying to understand.
I want to clarify which
the
it is.
fine is the issue that.
Okay, can we
But
stay to the
it's
Yeah,
fine?
can we focus on that?
Because we're not on the meeting tonight on the agenda to discuss the regulation. We're here to discuss your fine. So we cannot legally
Okay, because
discuss
it was
the
hard to
regulation.
tell. I mean, and it has been with any communication we've had, it's been hard to tell what is the administrative hearing and vote, because I haven't seen, I haven't watched that many Zoom meetings since, I mean, actually, you've been Zooming since COVID, right? Is that when it started?
It's 2020.
2020, and that's what I figured. So there are many people who don't know unless you have another way of reaching them, like in the water bills or like something like that. And once they knew, then they could say, well, okay, was questioning it. I mean, I got a copy with the fine. And I think we deserve to know exactly what means was used for our signature to be collected. Now, I understand Ade said that, well, you don't need to, it's just cite. Well, then don't send out a violation sheet that says that says that you did not, you were unable, they were unable to get the signature. They didn't even try. So that's the
Can we
problem.
move on beyond the signature? Carrie, you had a question?
I did. Thank you, Dr. Lopez. My question was just, Kevin, you had raised the question about the warning, and I had made note that there was a notice on December 1st that was a flyer, and I wanted to understand from Ade if that was the first step, and was that considered was that departmental treatment as a warning? I just wanted to understand it. I'm not interested in discussing the quality or the character of the pamphlet. I'm interested in hearing from Ade, our director, please, if I could understand what the process and the intent was on December 1st with that distribution. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So
Yeah.
at that point in time, the regulation had not been published, and I did not feel comfortable doing issuing a ticket or a warning based on a regulation that hadn't been published. So instead of that, I sent something that was friendly, that would still drive in the same point to the occupants of 20 Covey Hill. And as a result, she came in and had a lengthy conversation with the department, and she stated multiple times that she wouldn't stop feeding the turkeys.
The birds.
And she also stated that, it was an elementary school level flyer, and that, it contained false information. So at this point, I knew that we were dealing with somebody that knew what she was talking about. She understood what was going on, and we were able to publish the regulation, and we got the same complaint, and I didn't feel the need to issue a warning since the occupant knew exactly what was going on.
We
And
didn't
she
know
had
there
been
was
to
a
our
fine.
office
Sorry, if I
stating
could
that
please
she wouldn't
hear from
stop.
Ade. Thank you.
And she had been to our office stating that she would never stop feeding the turkeys.
No.
Okay, thank you, Ade. Thank you very much, Ade. Thank you for the answer to the question. So what I understand is that the department chose to provide education as the first step and did so with an established pamphlet that provided information about it. And I understand what I understood from Ade's words is that they provided education in the form of a pamphlet that
No, it's not a
Asked,
pamphlet.
that provided information about not feeding. That's education. That's not the regulation, that's education. And now I understand the process and how we move forward. Thank you for that clarification.
I think, unless there are any other questions, I think we should probably close the administrative hearing and have.
I would like to add, this is not an education pamphlet. That is just a sheet. And I did not say, I'm going to continue feeding the turkeys. I mean, I never said that. I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I'm really concerned at how this is coming out. And you know, with the pamphlet, I mean, I don't know if you people saw it, but it certainly looked like someone had gotten town stationery and then printed something in color. And that and I explained to them that we needed to have some, you know, they should, if they want this to be, you know, a notice, they need to put references, specific things. I think if you see it, everyone I've seen this looks at this and said, isn't that cute? They don't look at it as a warning with any penalty or anything. So I'm concerned about the way that the Board of Health is doing this and dealing with this. And, you know, it would have been quite much easier if there had been a hearing at which people said, look, we have concerns with the wildlife, and especially the northern part of town, though the turkeys are everywhere. They're not just here at my feeder. And, you know, so I think Swan Road could have a problem, but also you've got to consider all the construction that we have. I know you know about the rat problem, but around here, it's also the construction, and right behind people in Swan Road, that's where there's been a total upheaval of all the wildlife, and over near Martin Road and all that area.
Okay, I think
we
need to move on because we're getting into
Okay.
a broader discussion.
Well, that's part of the
And the
problem.
purpose of the hearing is really more around the question of the violation and the fine. And so I'm going to make a motion.
I appreciate that you listen to us too, because it's so frustrating to have this kind of
Well,
thing.
we know you're trying to do the right thing for the community. You know, we saw that.
We are too. I mean, we are too, you know, it's, but anyway.
Okay. I'll make a motion to close the administrative hearing. Do I have a second? Joan, second. Roll call. Kevin? Carrie?
Yes.
Yes.
And Joan and Rick, yes. Okay. So, comments. I think ultimately we need to vote on the violation and the fine. Do we accept the appeal, or do we think it should go forward based on the conversation and the issues that the Coopers have brought up, is really the issue before us.
I'll go.
Okay.
So I think I just want to start off, first of all, I'm going to go slightly off topic with a point of personal privilege. This regulation was put into place out of necessity. It wasn't something that we created in our own heads. It's something that was brought to us by the public as a public need for a public nuisance that was going on. And so I want people to really understand where this was driven from. And more so, the feedback we've gotten from the folks that were most affected by it is this regulation has actually worked in a very short period of time. So I have to say, I've been in government for a while. Well done. That doesn't happen very often, where you put something into play and you get immediate results. So I have no issue with this regulation. If we need to tweak it as we go, so be it. Again, I said this earlier, I'd rather roll out a bad product that helps people right away and fix it as we run with it. And if that's the case, and I'm not saying it is, but if that's the case, then that's what we'll do. That's what we've always done. In regards to this particular folks, I kind of see this pretty simply. I would prefer in the future that regardless of communication that's given, that the first offense is a written warning with the actual full legal regulation. And you know, a day I can appreciate your point in jumping right to a fine, 100%. I don't disagree with you with that. Again, we're rolling something out new, and we're kind of learning on the fly a little bit ourselves here. But I think that's something that the board originally wanted. And we can debate if we want whether that was done or missed or conveyed. I don't want to get into that type of argument. I want to get into what actually happened, and there was not an actual written warning with the regulation given, and maybe that's not written up that way, Day, and that's probably our fault for not instructing you properly to do just that, and we'll have to look at that as part of the process. But to me, I would, in this one instance, I wouldn't fine these folks. I would consider that the fine that they got as the warning. I would want to make sure that they are mailed an official regulation from us so they can see exactly what it is. That's the way I kind of feel on this. I would also like to put out for the public, because there has been some discussion about, can you have a bird feeder in your yard? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. We carved out a very specific exemption to have bird feeders in your yard. So all the folks that are not listening to this, that might in the future, yes, we absolutely carved that out as an exemption for you to have in your yard. However, there's a caveat to that, right? So if it becomes a public nuisance of having those feeders, then you need to, move them or remove them entirely to make it not a public nuisance. So that is part of the exemption, the both parts. I just want that to be known. But my feeling would be, this fine should have come as a warning. I think the Coopers are well aware of what this is, at least from a verbal standpoint. I would hope that we can get them the actual written regulations so that they can be fully understanding of what it is.
Just to sort of follow up on a couple points that Kevin made. When we institute a change in regulations or a new regulation, typically what we do is we make a real effort in the case of specific industries or people who businesses that are going to be impacted or whatever, to educate them on the new regulation. So when we made changes in the tobacco regulation, we went out and we made sure that all the retailers that sell tobacco and nicotine knew there were changes. When we make a change for a food establishment for food treatment, we make sure that we send out information that this is the new regulation. It's a little bit more focused because it just impacts a particular industry or, people who have dumpsters, for the new dumpster regulations. In the case of this wildlife feeding, it basically impacts 26,000 people. It impacts the entire town, and so it's a little bit harder to get the word out. I think from tonight's discussion, clearly there are some ways we could probably do better at that. In terms of social media, although there are people who don't go online. Publication in newspapers, I don't know how many people read newspapers these days. It's not as common. And so it is harder. I remember when we were dealing with COVID, it was very hard to get changes out to everybody with that. So I just want to acknowledge that we could probably do better in these kinds of regulations. But I think, as Kevin mentioned, we did, the best we could. I don't think I have the regulation in front of me and I just scanned it. I don't think there's any mention of giving a warning, but I also think that that's the discretion of the inspector. So for any type of violation of a regulation, a warning could be issued, and then the inspector comes back and sees that the problem has been rectified. So that could have been an approach. And, given some of the communication issues, I'm sort of leaning towards Kevin's, thinking that, maybe in this case, we view this as a warning. I think the Coopers are very now well aware of the regulation and have rectified the problem. And, there is a saying, and I'm not a lawyer, but there is a saying that, ignorance is no excuse. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And so, there's that. But I think in the case of perhaps fairness, we could consider a warning. Carrie, did you have a comment? I'm seeing you nod there, and
I do, but I saw Joan had her hand up
Oh, go ahead,
earlier, and I
Joan.
just want to make sure.
Oh, I was just, when Kevin was talking about, maybe there should have been a warning. I believe the regulation reads that the first offense is a $50 fine. And in my opinion, whether they choose to call it that or not, they were warned in December and should have been aware that it's a violation, whether there's a fine with it or not, and they chose to continue.
Hmm.
And so in my opinion, they were warned. Um,
Hmm.
and I would lean towards continuing the fine. Other people have been fined,
Yeah,
and where do you draw the line?
Carrie.
Yes, thank you, Rick. I I think that a couple things. I want to talk about the communication aspects that's been raised and the question of notice. And I want us to be cautious about this because yes, ignorance of the law is no excuse for non-compliance. And if our public safety partners were part of this conversation and how many times people have said, gosh, I didn't know that that was the case. Yes, understand we can't. It's just not possible to notify people of everything all of the time. And that's part of why there's trust placed in appointed and elected officials to be taking care of the needs of the community. So I'm not saying that we ought not try and do a good job of making sure folks know, but I don't want us to be somehow suggesting to ourselves and anyone else that we should be noticing on every single regulation change in the water bills and figuring out how to spend additional town resources to flyer every house. It's not practical and it's not cost effective. And I do want to acknowledge that. I also want to speak a little bit about the means of the communication. It sounds to me like there was some contentious conversation, and that concerns me on behalf of all municipal employees. I think that when folks' work product is described in uncharitable terms, I think that is challenging and difficult. And when it's repeated that, the work is elementary, the work is not appropriate, if the board, if the department are distributing something that's not good quality, we want to know. And I also would hope that folks can understand that the folks that work for us in our town work for all of us, and that they are doing the best that they can and sharing the best information that they have available. And it's important to me that be understood. Whether the material is written in the highest level of language. There's actually standards that are required that we be creating materials that hit at an 8th grade reading level so that it's accessible, as Kevin, as you said, Kevin, it's accessible to all folks, that it is readily accessible and understandable. And I needed to say that. And then I think, yes, if there have been 3 folks that have been fined, and there has been, and the regulation is written as a first offense is a $50 fine, I have some concerns about vacating the fine. The process was followed. If there were no other folks that this had been fined, perhaps we'd be having a different conversation. But our regulation, as we wrote it, was first offense is a $50 fine. And I appreciate all of the consternation, but I think it's important that we be consistent. So I feel a little stuck here. I feel like we boxed ourselves in. Our regulation says that, and I'm not sure I see the warrant. There was communication on December 1st, which may or may, was education, which is typically a first public health intervention is education. And that, we did do that, and then there was further communication. So I do feel a little stuck. And I'm going to stop here.
Go ahead, Kevin.
All right. So as now it's coming back to me, I do recall that it was the first offense was a fine. But I also recall us discussing in great detail that we wanted education to be the first line of this offense. So is that flyer that was sent out, I'm assuming that is what that detailed? The question I would have on that, does that in any way point in the direction of the actual regulation?
Aday, do you want to answer that?
It's just an educational flyer,
Okay.
educating the occupants about the consequences of feeding turkeys. That's all.
Okay, understood. So again, I defend this regulation to the hilt. Is it perfect? No. And have we found, in my opinion, I'm going to speak only for myself, not for the board. In my opinion, have we found a little bit of a flaw in it? I believe we have. I think if we're going to find somebody, they first should receive the regulation, whether it's on a flyer that somebody agrees with or doesn't agree with. I don't care. Does it point towards the regulation where they can actually go and look it up and see what it is? To me, that should be a new moving forward covenant that we have with that flyer. And so again, Carrie, I hear where you're torn on it. Joan, both of you, I can't disagree with any of your points. The only thing I would say is that we did just roll this out. I know other people have been fined. I also know that the reason they were fined is the actual reason for this regulation. So it's a well-known history, which is much different than the Coopers, at least to our knowledge on the Board of Health. We've never heard about the Coopers in the context of feeding wild anything before this night. We have heard of several times and several complaints of folks on Swan Ave feeding them, which is really where this came from. I know that because it came through me. I was the original member of the board that brought this to the board as a direct complaint from a resident over on Swan Ave about an ongoing issue that they have. We have video evidence, quite frankly, of them actually feeding them, can physically see it. I don't think we have that of the Coopers. So I don't see the two things as the same, quite frankly. One was the original proponent or the original person that needed this regulation, and one is somebody that was choose my words carefully here, that was not 100% aware of it. And I think there's a difference because the person that we brought this forward for, or that created the need for this, I will say, is a better way of putting it, was made very aware, where we talked to them on several points before we even had this regulation in place in regards to it. So I hear what you're saying, but I just see them as different things, and where we're just rolling this out, I would err on the side of the Coopers and consider this a warning for them moving forward. Again,
Can I just make a
the will of the board is fine.
Can I make a couple of comments, please?
Sure.
So the first comment is that we did everything according to the law. We didn't do anything incorrectly. We didn't do anything illegal. We followed all the protocols. We followed state guidelines, local guidelines as well. And also issuing a warning is at the discretion of the director or the inspector. So there's no requirement to always issue a warning first. In this situation, we had a regulation that was approved, had not been published. We sent educational materials out to the residents. We got a reaction back. The resident actually came to the department, and had a discussion and said certain things and admitted that they would not stop feeding the turkeys. So I'm not sure why I would issue a warning if we already know that this resident is adamant about giving up these activities. So I feel like we did everything correctly, and we sent educational materials out. And according to the regulation, it says first offense is $50. That was their first offense.
Can I ask you, back in December, when you had this conversation, when in the department, when Mrs. Cooper came in, did you convey to her that we had it wasn't just the flyer, but we actually have a regulation now?
So I did not have I had an indirect conversation because I was actually in the office taking care of certain things. Haley was talking to her directly, and I believe Haley conveyed the information that, there is an approved regulation that's pending publication. But that was what transpired. I was in the middle of something when she came in. She came in without giving us notice, which is okay. But again, if I'm in the middle of something, it's okay for Haley to come in and ask me about certain things. And that's how we've been doing it.
So was it conveyed to her that there was
I believe it was. So again, she knew about this in December. She got educational materials. The regulation says first offense, $50.
Mhm.
It doesn't say issue a fine. It says $50 for the first offense.
Mhm.
And that was what we did. She got the educational material. She knew there was an issue. She came to the office and told us that she would not stop feeding the turkeys.
And
So I'm
it
not
was
sure
published in
why.
February, which was 3 weeks before the fine occurred. The regulation was published in the newspaper in February 11th.
Correct.
And the fine was issued March 2nd.
Correct.
I'm concerned about us setting a precedent that's my concern. I appreciate your comments, Kevin. I'm trying to figure this out, because our regulation states something, and yeah. What our discussion is, and I understand the discussion, but our discussion is in our interest is expressing something different than what our regulation says. And I am challenged to think about how we approach that, and not set a precedent that well, if you just come in and argue it, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but you know, it's sort of like if you go in and argue the speeding ticket, then you know it'll get wiped out. Then yeah, I don't want to put our staff or us in that position. You know, so that's why I'm still stuck. And again, if this was the first person, it would make it so much easier. And you know, and appreciating all the things that you're saying, Kevin, about the different circumstances. You know, I know. But yeah, I remain.
So I
The
feel like
precedent is that's my gig, Carrie. Precedent. We've talked about it before in
Right.
other regulations.
sure.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like that's why we have this appeal process, though, right? That's why it's readily available. And I just go back and I just you know, I fully defend a day in what he's saying and telling us, and I take it as absolute truth. I have no question to question you a day, and I'm on your side. The evidence is different. So saying one thing in the heat of the moment and doing something, well, I mean, we have to prove that they actually did it. All right. So at the end of the day, this is a bird feeder hung, from what I could see, on a tree. It's not like the other properties where it was on the ground with video evidence of somebody. We have that. We have them. It's not a question of did you? No. Here it is. Let me show it to you in live time, and you also have it on the ground, which makes it readily available. I feel like the evidence is different in this case in that regard, almost even to the point where if they knew it was occurring. Now, can we? I know we've closed discussion. Did the Coopers reference that they've moved that feeder or not moved that feeder?
Well, we did a subsequent reinspection, and the feeders have vanished since then. They have multiple feeders on their property, but the one that stood out to us was the one hanging from the tree right above the turkeys. There is a correlation between that feeder
Sure.
and the turkeys below.
So that is no longer there. Is that what you're saying?
It's no longer there, correct?
But
And
has that been removed since the fine was
absolutely
given?
yes.
I mean,
The other point I would just make about photographs is we don't need, at least I didn't think we needed photographs. You know, when we go inspect a restaurant and they've had food out, we don't take multiple pictures, you know, because they left the food out and it should be refrigerated or whatever. I mean, or dumpsters that are overflowing if we don't have pictures. I mean, we rely on our inspectors to visualize a violation. And at least that's always been, from what I've heard in the last 5 years, that's always been adequate.
oh no, absolutely. That's why I question, you know, is the feeder still there or not?
Yeah.
But the feeder was removed after, not in December, or was it still, it was still present in December, and that's why the fine was issued? Am I understanding? I just want to understand the
should be-
fact
So
pattern.
the photos were taken in March, and we
Okay.
conducted subsequent re-inspections after that, and the feeders were gone.
Okay. So education was not effective.
So December, you're talking to them, but they're still there in March. That's what we're saying. That's what
Well, in December when she came in, she stated that she wasn't going to do anything about it, and she would keep feeding the turkeys. She stated that clearly, and she said our flyer was elementary level.
So it's interesting. Ade, I completely agree with you in your assessment. That should have been given as that should have been, you know, whether it was written or not, that's a warning, which is quite frankly outside of the scope of our regulation and actually more fair to the resident at the time. And if they didn't remove it till March, that's not a good look. Yeah. Okay.
Does a board member want to make a motion? of all the meetings where we have 4 people, it would be nice to have an odd number, but
So what are we motioning to
Right.
Yeah.
exactly to
the question
deny the appeal?
the purpose of the hearing is to either validate the violation and the fine as it has been done, or to accept the appeal and revoke the violation and the fine. So after more discussion, I think I would, at least we can take at least the first vote. I mean, I think I would make a motion to validate the fine and the violation, given the fact that there was standard notification in the newspaper 3 weeks before um, 3 weeks before the violation, as well as a discussion in December that in which the Coopers were notified that there was a regulation, even though it wasn't posted. I think there was adequate communication there, maybe not the best. So my motion is that we validate the violation and the fine. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call. Carrie,
Yes.
Kevin,
no?
Joan,
Yes.
and Rick, yes. Okay. I think that I think might be a good idea in maybe in our next meeting to have an agenda item to talk about when we do regulations, what's the expectation about communication and at least to have a standard protocol. But we need to move on. We've been on this topic for over an hour, and I appreciate the Freemans hanging in there. So I'm going to make a motion to open the next administrative hearing for the matter at 56 Arcadia Avenue. And do I have a second?
Second.
Joan, second. Roll call, Carrie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and Joan.
Yes.
And Rick, yes. Okay, so at this point, the Freemans are probably experts at how these administrative hearings work. We're going to ask Aday to give us an overview of the issue involved here, what's transpired, and then give Katie Freeman an opportunity to give her perspective on this, and then we will have time for questions, and then conclude the hearing and take a vote. So Aday, you're on.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Lopez. On March 24th, 2026, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health forwarded us a complaint about a residential kitchen permit holder advertising and offering TCS foods from their home kitchen. TCS simply means time temperature control for safety. So we immediately investigated the issue and determined there was a violation of the food code based on the information obtained online. Let's see, Haley, can you please put that up? You can just scroll down, keep going, just to the food section. Keep going. All right, right here. Can you turn it around? Would you be able to do that or no?
Give me 1 second. Don't know if I'll be able to do that. Hold on.
Lower right-hand corner.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't see it.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay. So we immediately investigated the issue and we determined there was a violation of the food code based on the information obtained online. So the residential kitchen permit has limitations and only allows for the preparation of baked goods, jams, and jellies, pretty much foods that do not require hot or cold holding for safety. So as evidenced in this picture, you can see that that's not the case. There are some cut tomatoes, onions, and potentially, some grains in there. We also noticed inadequacies in the product label. So we immediately issued a cease and desist order and provided the permit holder with corrective measures and educational materials regarding, residential kitchen food protection program. Katie was very cooperative during the process. She has since taken down those pictures. I believe she now fully understands the limitations of her permit. And even though, the violation of this nature, a violation of this nature could result in a revocation of her permit, I would not recommend the board take this action at this time. Katie, are you here? Would you like to say anything regarding this?
Katie, can you hear us?
She should be unmuted.
Yes, looks like she is.
Should I maybe try to unmute Jojo as well, or just wait?
About to say that, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got one on.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Katie?
Which one do I?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, it's giving feedback.
You want to mute one?
Could be fixed now.
Let me mute this one.
Oh, do you have us on TV?
You're
If you,
this
Okay.
is being recorded. If you're both together and you're both on it, maybe right.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
yes.
Perfect.
Okay, I can't hear them. I can't hear them now.
Oh,
So
I'm
did
sorry.
you hear everything we said?
she can't hear us.
Give me just 1 second. I'm sorry. I can't hear you.
Okay.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna try to log in on my phone and see if I can. What were you gonna say? Yeah, I mean, it's not, I can't, the speaker on the computer is not working. So I know I have to.
Katie, how about now? Can you hear us? Should we play a theme song
Right.
till she hears it?
Oh,
I'll remove her other one so it doesn't echo.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Let me make sure I do the right one.
One is KATIE
Yeah, I'm
and the
gonna
other one is
remove.
KAE.
Yeah. Those
Can you
eight.
hear me now?
Oh,
Yes, we
wait,
can hear you.
I think we need to remove Katie and keep
Katie. Okay, okay. I just wanted to make sure I didn't remove the
Yeah,
wrong.
move Katie and keep Kate.
Okay. Remove Katie. And now we will unmute Kate.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, can you hear us?
Okay, I'm so sorry about that.
No worries.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So basically what happened was I have two separate Instagram accounts. One is an account that I've had for many, many years, that was just pictures, like a food blog that I had created, that has like all different pictures. And then I have my separate business account, for the business that I had just opened. It was, I believe, that week. I had just opened the Instagram account for the separate one for my business. And the picture is actually from my food account, not my business account. I believe the person had screenshot it and attached it to the email. Um, and then in terms of the label on my package, I have the name of my business on the front, and then on the back of my package, I have a separate label that has all the ingredients, which I actually, since that picture was taken and given to you guys, I've now put on the front of my bags. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I hadn't done anything that violated the food safety code. And I had spoken to Zarahan about it, and it had seemed like things were worked out. So I wasn't quite sure, moving forward, what the situation was.
So can I ask, so you have two different Instagram accounts. One is your business account and one is your where you post pictures of things you've made or other things like that.
Yeah.
Right. And so under your permit, have you actually made food items that are in violation of the limitations of your permit or not?
No, I haven't sold anything that is against the is it the TC?
TC, yes.
TC.
Yes.
No, I haven't sold any of that food. No.
So the complaint was that someone drew a connection of your personal Instagram account where you post different foods,
Yeah.
and they said, well, you must be selling these, and that was the complaint that went to the state. Is that how I understand it?
Yes. The person had also um complained about two other local home um residential kitchens with, I believe, similar or claims having never purchased anything from their business. This person has never, I believe, purchased anything from me because they would have seen the labels specifically on the bag. That's why I knew that it was just a screenshot from social media. So yeah, I haven't been selling anything that violates the residential kitchen law.
Okay. Is that your understanding today as well?
Correct. And we've been able to send Kate some educational materials as well. And at this point, I'm comfortable saying that she now understands the limitations of her permit better.
Any other questions for Kate?
So a couple. I'm trying to rack my brain around this. I understand the concept of it all. So you have, all right, I'm going to beat this to death here. Sorry, Kate.
That's okay.
You have two separate accounts. One is like your personal blog, right? This is something I made today, and then you have a business one that is like, this is something you can purchase. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the item involved was from the personal blog, not the business blog. Or the Instagram account, whatever.
So if I can jump in real quick. So
Yeah.
this is it's all about perception. So it appears that, when you have your personal.
No, Day, I get it. I'm just trying to verify,
Yeah. So when you have
more
your
than
personal.
verify, I'm trying to figure out how we can verify.
Yes. So when you have your personal Instagram account, you have a bunch of followers. And then when you open up a brand new business account, you really don't have followers. And sometimes you may want to promote your business on your
Absolutely,
personal.
yeah.
And I believe
You're
that's
explaining social media to a Gen Xer. You know that, right?
Yeah, I think
we invented this stuff. Sorry to cut you off. But no, I completely understand that. I'm just trying to understand the process. So we did a site visit to Kate's house or Katie's house, and just to verify. Is that correct?
yes.
We have some verification. That's what I'm looking for, I guess. I should have just led with that.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, Joan.
So my understanding is that there was no violation.
Essentially, yes.
Perceived violation.
There was right, but there was
Correct.
no actual violation.
But she has since taken down those pictures, and she's done her best to
So
separate.
there'll be no further misunderstanding.
Correct.
And it got improved labeling. So
Correct.
Even if there is further misunderstanding, it's not about the misunderstanding. It's about the sale, right? So if there's no sale, there's no violation. I mean, she could promote, meatloaf on her business site all day long. When someone shows up to get meatloaf, they're like, "Well, sorry, I don't sell meatloaf." So, right. So there's the perception does not create a violation. That's kind of where I was trying to figure out that she could promote, cheeseburgers on her business site if she'd like all day long. If she sells a cheeseburger, she's in violation.
So
But the
we are
promotion.
required to investigate every time we get a complaint.
I know.
So every time she does that and somebody complains,
I know.
we're going
I
to
get
be
it.
investigating.
And
So
as
that
it should
wouldn't
be.
be
As it should be. I agree.
I mean, that was my initial sort of question, was that I was sent the cease and desist, but I was just confused because I knew where the pictures were from after going back and looking at my two accounts. And then I was wondering how that is handled, or how that would be handled in the future, if there's some sort of like investigation before something like that is sent out.
So where, Haley, can you please put up that picture again? So the way your text reads on the picture, okay, so it says, "Hi everyone, my name is Katie, and I've recently opened an at-home bakery called Katie's Table," and then you have all these pictures. So basically, like when you look at this, you're pretty much telling people that this is what you're making. That's what it looks like. I'm licensed by the Reading Board of Health. I make sourdough bread, sandwiches, and then you have all these pictures of things that you shouldn't be making. So that's where the issue is.
Right. But I believe that picture was taken from my other account and sent to you.
Okay,
what
but
I'm
it says
saying.
right here, Reading Board of Health. I'm licensed by Reading Board of Health.
Yep.
So that's the
Yeah, I know.
issue.
I can see how that's confusing, but I believe that this picture is from my other food account, and it seemed to me that this person was trying to go after local home businesses, the way that she had worded her email and lumped in two other women.
Oh, so this picture itself, we actually looked online as well, and we found this
Yeah.
exact. So this is our screenshot, not somebody's screenshot. This is Town of Reading's screenshot that we took online. This is
Oh,
our
Right, this is,
screenshot.
Katie, this is posted under your name. This paragraph.
yeah, no, I know it's posted because I have the actual picture I didn't believe was in my post that was on my business account.
Yeah, so this is our picture. We got this
Okay.
screenshot from your website, and it has your name on it, Katie Freeman, and it also references Reading Board of Health, and that was why you got a cease and desist.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that picture was part of the pictures that I posted. I had posted a bunch of pictures that were all together, and
Right.
I
And
didn't
then,
even realize that was in it.
yes, the
Right,
one
So I
that
apologize for that.
yes, if you scroll down, Haley.
I mean, this was a
Okay, so right
promotion,
here,
Katie. Yeah.
so right here, go back down. Let's see the one with the rice and the one with
But
the
yeah,
the
so
other
if
way.
you
So right
that's my
here,
food page, so that's why it's
exactly. So that's
confusing
your
to me.
personal page, the
Right.
one with the rice and shrimps and things like that.
Yep.
Okay, so that's your personal page. And then if
Go
you
back up,
go to the bread, go
go back to the
right
bread.
here. No.
That's an advertisement or promotion that you posted on the Reading Mass business page. And you shared those pictures and stated, I have just opened this new business and this is what it is. So that was your post. So
And
that's
then you
why this
Oh, okay.
came
and
up.
then you
So
said you're licensed by the Reading Board
Right.
of Health,
Yep. Okay. I didn't realize that picture was in there, to be honest. I wasn't selling that, so I don't know.
So that was the reason for the cease and desist. And
Okay.
since then, you've removed those pictures, and that's why I'm recommending to the board not to revoke your license,
Okay.
because you're cooperative, and I feel like you fully understand the limitations of your residential kitchen permit.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay. There are no other questions. I make a motion to close the administrative hearing so we can deliberate on this.
second,
Second, Carrie. Roll call, Carrie,
yes.
Kevin, Joan,
Yes.
and Rick, yes. Thank you, Kate, for your time, and we're going to discuss this now. It sounds like, from my perspective, this was just there wasn't a violation in terms of selling the inappropriate foods, so I don't see it as a reason to revoke the permit myself.
I mean, I am gonna say, the post with those photos by the business owner saying, these are the thing, this is my new business and these are the pictures, that is concerning. But hearing from Aday about his confidence that the business owner understands the limitations of their permit, I support I trust our staff that they're confident on that, and that, the education and understanding of the seriousness of, I mean, there's a reason that we look for proper time and temperature control. It's to prevent serious health impact, and it's not just because we're I don't know, trying to be mean. I mean, this is a very it has serious implications, especially for people who maybe are immune compromised or have other illnesses, and so. But yes, thank you for doing the work Aday with the business owner and providing the information to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Carrie, Rick, I would agree with you both. I think at the worst that this is a misrepresentation by mistake, not by malice, and seems to be the case here. I would agree, though, from a standpoint, good good job a day with this one, because
Mhm.
anytime that someone assigns the Board of Health and shows those pictures, that's where it becomes very problematic. Where now it's, we don't want it to spread that, oh, you can sell that type of product with the Board of Health's approval. No, not under regular circumstances. You must have special conditions in order for that to happen. I'd agree. I don't see I don't see any real violation that occurred here. I think it's just a misunderstanding at the worst case scenario, which I don't think it is, just a misrepresentation. But I don't think it's that either. But neither one of those rises to a finable offense.
Mhm. I agree. I agree that, there was a perceived potential violation and it was addressed directly, and the business owner was cooperative and everything's fine. Good job.
So I just make to sort of seal this, I would just make a motion to I don't know, I would make a motion to allow Kate to continue her permit, and no violation was found.
Seconded.
Kevin second. Roll call. Carrie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
and Rick, yes. All right. Moving down to the backstretch here.
And before we go on, folks, if you want to stay on, you're more than welcome to. It's a public meeting. If you want to drop off, don't worry.
We'll understand.
We understand. By all means, it gets very procedural from this point forward. So.
And we appreciate you sticking in and making the effort to attend the meetings.
All right. Monthly report.
Yes.
I'm going to make this brief, and then I'll have Leave go after me, and then hopefully we can wrap this meeting up as quickly as possible. In the month of March, we conducted 14 comprehensive food inspections, 2 food re-inspections, 1 foodborne illness investigation, and 1 food complaint. We issued 1 new food permit, 6 housing order to correct letters, and 4 solid waste 21D tickets. All right, Liv, you can go ahead with the nursing updates, please.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Okay, welcome to April. Welcome to spring. So excited. Okay, so for the month of March, we had 73 flu cases and 19 COVID cases. A little uptick in the flu there, but we are starting to trend down, which is wonderful. For April, here are our blood pressure screenings for the month. April 3rd, I was at the senior center. On the 27th, I'll be at the library. And on the 23rd, I'll be at 22 Frank Tanner Drive. It is National Minority Health Month this month in April, time to raise awareness and the importance of improving health for all racial and ethnic minority individuals. It is also Medicaid Awareness Month, time to recognize the central role Medicaid plays in the lives of over 80 million Americans, and many, many here in Reading. It is also National Autism Acceptance Month. Communicate effectively with someone with autism. Here are some tips and tricks. Oh, it is also Alcohol Awareness Month here in April, so check your alcohol use. This is a little checklist and also a nice little standard drink list. All right, so events that I have coming up, I have the annual hearing screening is coming back. We have it coming on May 20th. This is the QR code to sign up. I also have the link for anyone that might want it. I will also be having a hearing screening coming for our Reading Fire Department and our EMS staff. I'm pretty excited about that. We have the mammography van coming on Tuesday, May 5th. Please register because spots are filling up quickly. I will be doing a Narcan training with the Reading Coalition for Prevention and Support on May 11th after a CPR class, a hands-only CPR class that I will be teaching that same night. Oop. We have our annual health fair that I organized at the Pleasant Street Senior Center coming up on June 1st. I already have over a dozen vendors coming. So last year we had 31. So please, if you're able to come by, we really appreciate that. We are doing a regional baby shower in hopes to support new and expecting families and parents. We are going to be holding that regionally at Linfield with the Middlesex Essex Public Health Collaborative. And we're calling it Bump Baby and Beyond. And I am doing a diaper donation at the diaper donation drop-off at Town Hall if you would like to donate. And as always, I have my diabetes supplies take back program and my medical supplies take back program. Thank you.
Thanks, Liv. Dr. Lopez?
Yes. Any final comments, ideas for future agenda items, suggestions? All right. Well, I guess we made up for the last meeting. That was like 25 minutes. Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn that in that case. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Roll call, Kevin,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
and Rick, yes. Thank you all for your service, and
Yes.
we'll see you next month.
Good night,
Thank
all.
you. Bye.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.